It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve the people of West Virginia in the United States House of Representatives over the past 10 years. I was elected on November 4th of 2014. Believe it or not, back then, West Virginia wasn't a safe Republican state. I only won by 3 percentage points in a tough election. But the good people of West Virginia's 2nd District had given me the privilege of electing me 4 more times, so 5 times in total, to represent them for these past 10 years. I did not seek re-election to the U.S. House of Representatives. I ran for another office, which I did not win. So my time will come to a close at noon on January 3rd. I've actually enjoyed educating a lot of folks about how this works here, and the Constitution dictates specifically the time at which you are no longer a congressman. And it's exactly at noon on January 3rd. And at that time, my 10 years in office will come to an end. During my first 8 years in Congress, I've represented 17 beautiful counties from the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, where I live, all the way down to Charleston in Kanawha County. That's the part in the red here through the middle of the state. After the 2020 census was done, West Virginia lost one of our 3 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. So for the past 2 years, I've represented 27 counties across the northern half of our state, the top part of the state there. I've had the uncomfortable, unfortunate experience of having to run against another incumbent member of Congress in that election. I did prevail, and so it's been a great privilege to represent half the state just these past 2 years. So while West Virginia is one of the smaller states in terms of population, its geography is vast. It takes 6 hours to drive from one end of my district to the other. So I've traveled thousands of miles, meeting wonderful, hardworking taxpayers in West Virginia. In fact, one of my favorite things to do is when I'm driving, basically 6 hours from one end of my district to the other, is stop in every little town, barber shops, thrift stores, general stores, and just say hi to folks. I have found that most folks have actually never met their congressman or have never met any congressman, and I take great pleasure in just popping in, even unannounced, saying hi to folks, letting them know we're there, we're here to help. I consider it a great honor and privilege to be able to do that. My wife, Dr. Grace Gonzalez Mooney, and I are very proud to call West Virginia home. We are, in fact, West Virginians by choice. We chose to move there from another state, an intentional choice we made, and we're very proud of, and we're certainly not leaving. Together, I'm just grateful. My wife has supported me unwaveringly over the past decade and even before. This is tough on the family, this business, so I really thank my wife. We've shared many triumphs and challenges through those years. On October 13th of 2014, our bonus baby, we call her, our daughter Gabrielle, we call her Gabby, was born at Women's and Children's Hospital in Charleston, West Virginia. She's now 10 years old, and she knows I'll be home more next year. Being in Congress has meant missing a lot of time with family, but West Virginia has educational freedom, which is great, so we homeschooled our children, allowed us to spend more time together. I've watched my children grow and thrive over the years. I'm proud of my son Lucas, a junior at Princeton. He's an expert in jiu-jitsu. My daughter Cammie, who's a gifted singer, is a freshman at Vanderbilt. I'm excited to spend more time with them as I step away. I want to thank my 3 children for their love and support. When I first arrived in Congress, one of my top priorities was addressing the opioid overdose crisis that was ravaging our state. The opioid epidemic is a tragedy that knows no bounds. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, if you live in a city or a rural area, if you're rich or poor. The drug addiction is ravaging this country everywhere. I was proud one of the first laws I had changed, the first law I had changed, was based on my bill called the PROP Act, Promoting Responsible Opioid Prescribing Act. This simple yet important piece of legislation simply sought to reduce unnecessary access to narcotic pain medications, thus lowering the risk of addiction. I actually had a meeting with the West Virginia Medical Society, my first term in Congress, in Charleston, and they brought this to my attention. Doctors said, according to the newly passed Affordable Care Act, there's provisions that allow their reimbursements to be reduced if patients complain that they didn't get the drugs they wanted. And studies have shown 70% of people addicted to drugs start with legally prescribed drugs. So doctors are trying to do the right thing and not prescribe drugs to people who don't absolutely really need it. They want to cause more drug addiction. And for that, they had the risk of being penalized and not being reimbursed, have their reimbursements reduced. They complained about this quite strongly to me, and I took action. I put in a bill to stop it. It was a bipartisan bill. We had 30 Republican co-sponsors, 30 Democrat co-sponsors. The Department of Health was dug in. They wouldn't acknowledge the problem. They wouldn't change it. They fought back against it. We had a hearing. There was no opposition. And later that year, the Department of Health just took the exact language of my bill. They agreed with me, and they took word for word the legal language of my bill and made it the new law of Department of Health, assuring that doctors could never be penalized for not giving prescription drugs. And that was the first law I had changed, and I'm proud of that. I led support for the coal miners and families with the STREAM Act, supporting transparent regulatory and environmental actions. The bill blocked anti-coal regulation from the Obama administration, preserving, we estimate, 77,000 good, high-paying jobs in West Virginia and also across the nation. The passage of the STREAM Act was crucial, protecting our way of life in West Virginia. Throughout my time in Congress, my colleagues know I fought for a return to what we call regular order in the appropriations process, actually passing the spending bills on time, reasserting the power of the purse that, again, the Constitution specifically and only puts in this chamber right here. Not in the Senate, not in the President. The Constitution says only this chamber can initiate spending or taxation. And that's something we've gotten away from doing. We pass these things called continuing resolutions, where we give all the money to the President to do whatever he wants. And that's not right. I firmly believe that the government works best when Congress uses its constitutional power of the purse to hold federal agencies accountable. Okay, we don't live in a bureaucracy, in a bureaucratic-run government. We live in a democracy, a republic with democratic elections. So it's crucial that we prioritize our districts and the needs of the American people rather than allowing bureaucrats to dictate policy behind closed doors and just give them the money. Believe it or not, it almost sounds like living history, but when I was first elected, President Obama was in office, and it felt like our nation was frankly losing their identity. I'm convinced that President Trump's election in 2016 helped steer our country back on course. I stood through President Trump through 2 politically motivated impeachment trials and against the partisan witch hunt of the January 6th committee. While I believe in robust political debate, the weaponization of government against President Trump was unprecedented, and many American people as well. I'm proud to have fought back. I'm heartened by the support Trump and other conservatives continues to receive across this nation. As a member of the Financial Services Committee, I work tirelessly to protect small businesses and defend industries vital to our state: coal, oil, natural gas, many others, financial services, banks, even small banks that provide you the loans you need to buy a home, to start a small business. These people provide very important services. And, you know, people sometimes say, what are you going to get done? We got a new Congress coming in. What are you going to get done? Well, we can get things done. It isn't easy. The political process isn't easy and simple. You got to fight for it, but we can get things done. In 2017 and 2018, we worked to repeal some of the most harmful provisions of the Obama-era Dodd-Frank law. It was called the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act, signed into law by President Trump, passed the House, passed the Senate with bipartisan support in the Senate. They had a coalition of some Democrats and most Republicans. And on May 24, 2018, that bill was signed into law. And so now West Virginia banks and banks across the country are not subject to many of the costly regulations that hurt economic growth. So, you know, this Congress, I fought against government overreach, introduced an amendment to block the Federal Reserve from the digital dollar program, a move that would open the door to government control of our personal transactions, similar to what you see in China. We got to defend our freedoms and government overreach. During my entire time in public service, from the time I ran for state senate through today, I've been passionate about the right to protect all human life, including unborn babies. It's been a privilege to lead the Life at Conception Act, which seeks to protect the most vulnerable among us, the unborn. Now, Supreme Court historic Dobbs decision states now are fully authorized to protect life from the moment of conception. My bill, Life at Conception Act, is a biological fact. Joe Biden agrees with my bill. I mean, he said it last year. He believes life begins at conception. They used to teach this in school, in biology classes across the country. In public schools, they would teach all human life begins at conception. That is just simply a fact. You can have different views on things, but it's a fact of life, fact that life begins at conception. I'm proud that most of my Republican colleagues have supported my legislation, and I urge folks to continue to fight for all human life as we go forward. I've got a few closing comments, some folks I want to thank, but I do want to yield to some of my colleagues who are here in the chamber. some time to reflect. I appreciate them being here. We'll first recognize